before we get started, too late. I already started. See how that works? I always, that's one of my pet peeves when people say, before I get started, which is a form of starting. Um, so there is a, excuse me, there was a promise made in the new Congress. Pardon me as I just jammed a sandwich down my face because I woke up from my coma 15 minutes ago. There were a myriad of promises, but the big one was because of how the rules package was written, gone are the days of House members standing on the floor talking to no one, standing at a podium, just yammering shit into the congressional record, just, without the rest of their colleagues backing them up. That they had to sit there and listen to the debate and back and forth because that's what the American people wanted. That's what they voted for overwhelmingly, especially, and the Freedom Caucus was one of their red lines. Did you know that most of the people you see on C-SPAN, when they're talking and spouting something or arguing a point or arguing an amendment or arguing about spending, there's nobody else there? Do you know that? And aren't you outraged? Shouldn't everyone have to show up whenever Boebert decides to yammer something for a half an hour? By God, yes. And as a matter of fact, McCarthy doesn't get our present votes until he actually votes, until he puts the rules in, and then everybody is going to have to sit there and listen, or not at all, or Chip Roy could come to the floor when no one is there and talk for 30 fucking minutes. And then Forbes breaking news, which I don't think is a Forbes related thing, or maybe it is. Maybe it's Steve Forbes breaking news, personally. They're going to post that. Yeah, notice the I guess, you know what I mean? At this point, I'm thinking maybe the Republicans just are wearing seat camo. So, this is Chip Roy. And Chip Roy is making a speech on the House floor. Members of Congress speak on the House floor. Member of Congress, a dainty little member, but still a member nonetheless, speaking to the congressional stenographer, and I guess the C-SPAN cameras. But do you guys remember that being a big thing? That was one of their big wins. Now, the idea is that they're going to have to be there for the amendment process or something, but this was across the fucking board. Chip is going full Newt, early 90s. Well, let's see. We don't have to listen to all this because it's the same shit he's been saying forever. But this is, by the way, this is a clip pulled on this Forbes Breaking News channel of a 30-minute speech this fucker gave alone on the House floor, because the Freedom Caucus insists that everyone show up when somebody has to speak to the floor during this kind of stuff. And none of those Freedom Caucus members are present anywhere that we're aware of. Here you go. Here's a little taste.
Spending restraint. How are we going to tackle spending? I'd like to listen to my colleagues tell me, how do you plan on tackling spending? Because right now, my basic understanding of how my colleagues on the other side of the aisle would tackle spending is tax people or keep spending money or both.
There are cuts that have been offered by Democrats as well. But the idea is that he's so anti-tax. Taxes are no way, even if it's a billion-dollar company. And by the way, that's already been done. The baseline 15% tax, the minimum 15 on billion-dollar profit companies, it's already through. It's already in. It's already happening. It's going to be part of how things are budgeted in the future, and it will affect how we pay down the deficit. It's already happened. Before this asshole and his party squeezed a minor win through and now control Congress for until George Santos and about 7 other Republicans go to jail. And he knows this.
My view on this side of the aisle is
that means his folks.
We don't want to tax people, but we want to keep spending money.
So at least Democrats are offering a solution, if an unpalatable one to him. At least it's one that would come up with extra money to pay for stuff. Whereas the Republicans just seem to want to do that without coming up with the extra money. So we're, 28 seconds in, and he's already outed his own party as a bunch of liars on the deficit.
In the name of defense.
And I don't know why the rest of it, why discretionary spending or whatever is somehow he's considering defense discretionary when it comes to Republican stuff, because he wants to unspend the Ukraine money. That's what this is about, by the way. This has nothing to do with American defense. He thinks any money we're spending on another country is not in the interest of the United States.
Anybody want to come challenge me on that assertion?
Nobody seems to want to come there while you're talking at all.
Happy to debate them. Either side of the aisle. Come on down.
Nobody wants to talk to you, Chip. Listen to the echo in that fucking room.
Let's debate it.
Hear how empty that room is? That room is so empty, you could record John Bonham's drum sound in it.
I don't think anybody will take that debate on.
Yes, because no one wants to talk to you, Chip. It has nothing to do with the debate itself, by merit or by thought or by concept.
Because they know I'm right.
No, because they don't like talking to you because you're an idiot.
Why don't we change that?
I don't know. Start with your own party, because again, the Democrats in his assessment, which is flawed, but let's give it to him for this sake of argument. The Democrats have at least come up with a way of coming up with more funds for either paying down the deficit or adding the programs they want. The Republicans have none. So if you're going to start sweeping one porch over the other, you're going to head to the messiest one covered in the most shit.
Where are my colleagues on the other side of the aisle when it comes to spending?
They're at raising taxes on rich people so that everybody pays their fair share, so that it contributes, so that they can use that money to pay for the programs, especially when it comes to the debt ceiling that we've already done.
I'd like to know.
It's in read the omnibus. If you complain about the omnibus and like, nobody's even read this fucking thing. Well, it's out now. It's been signed. Read away, motherfucker. 4,000 pages. I don't know what the fuck you're doing on the floor. Get your reading glasses on and a bookmark.
I think the American people deserve to know.
Well, the Democrats will take care of themselves. Mind your fucking business. How about this? How about explain why your party, who apparently has zero solutions for it and apparently wants to, I don't know, fund more nukes or something, why they think that just spending without any solutions is a better solution than spending and taxing to make up for it. Fucking hell.
Do you believe
in a thing called love?
In modern monetary theory, just keep spending money and it doesn't matter?
Apparently that's what modern monetary theory is. I'm guessing, not being a student of it, that it's a little more complicated than that. Otherwise it wouldn't be modern. It would just be, I don't know, an ailment some people have, the ones who stay up all night watching late night infomercials and ordering everything they see.
I don't. I think that's foolish.
Yes, well, I'm sure that straw man is a bad lay. So stop fucking it, move away, and go deal with your own side.
I think it's reckless. I think it undermines our dollar.
Yes, our dollar, which is arguably, according to the Fed and all the economics people that are on that he supports, is too strong right now. That dollar that's so undermined that it's worth $1.10.
I think it undermines our financial stability.
Yes, honey, we need to keep living in an apartment with all the kids because it undermines our financial stability to raise them in a house that we could pay a mortgage on, where the payment is cheaper than the apartment, and our children can grow better. And the analogy suits the, yeah.
More importantly, I think it makes it impossible for us to make good decisions about how to make policy and execute policy.
Why? Here's a good question, and follow me on this. Why does this policy you're talking about cost money? Why is every policy you're talking about have a financial cost to it? Certainly there's some regulation to it, but if you give a new law to police officers, the FBI, the IRS, or whatever, they just add it to the other things that they police if they come across it or they find evidence of it, but they don't have to add on a new wing to the FBI headquarters for every fucking crime that now becomes illegal, especially when it's financial crimes, Ponzi schemes and shit like that. So why do your anti-abortion or anti-choice bills cost money? What's the fucking cost? How does that harm your ability, your policy, the policies that you put forward, which are against women's ability to choose, against LGBT people, anti-immigrant in so many ways, and again, complicating on an international scale our immigration policy in a way that probably costs more fucking money.
How can you make a tough decision about whether or not you need to buy a bomber, or whether or not you need to fund a particular grant program, or fund a particular entitlement that is way oversubscribed and out of money?
An entitlement, way oversubscribed. So you don't, Social Security is like a subscription, to like a Jelly of the Month Club. Clark, that is the gift that keeps on giving all the year round. Or like, I don't know, Jugs magazine. That's that. And mentally, that's the subscription. That's the level, the importance of both those things. Chip Roy thinks of Social Security on the same plane as a subscription to Jugs, if there is such a thing.
How can you make a decision about that if the answer is just keep printing money?
First of all, because it isn't just keep printing money. You've already established, fucko, that when he's pointing to the Democratic side, notice that the whole time he's gesturing in that direction. He's pointing towards the people who want to raise taxes specifically that were cut and not paid for while Trump was in office. So you could just restore the tax level that was there before, and that would solve a bunch of it. But acting like if you dislike tax, like raising taxes or repealing a tax break, that's one thing. But you can't pretend it's not a solution. They're not refusing to bring something to the table. That's what they're bringing to the table. Just because it's a non-starter with you doesn't mean that your party gets to fall back on, well, fuck it, if we don't do that, we don't have to do anything. Here's a good idea. I'll float this for you. These fuckers already put up a bill to repeal the IRS or the income tax and get rid of the IRS. Never going to happen, but blah, blah, blah. Here's a good idea. And this is what they would do if they weren't complete chicken shits. Okay, you ready? This is what, if Chip Roy was not a complete chicken shit, and if everybody in the Freedom Caucus wasn't full of shit across the board, full of chicken shit, obviously, what they could do is, instead of putting up a bill that proposes the repeal of the income tax and the elimination of the IRS, put up a bill that starts a VAT tax across the whole country, a sales tax on everything that will transition over the course of 5 years or 10 years, whatever the next decade is, away from income tax to a VAT tax. It doesn't have to start all at once. You're not going to, because you'd never pass that. And they know they would never pass it, so that's why they post it. They know it's such, like, it's one of those things like if a far right or far left member of the Democratic Party said, I'm instituting a bill to eliminate the Pentagon. Like, it not only is that an absurdity on its face and whatever. But it's also chicken shit. What it is it's a performative piece of legislation that will never solve the problem. And even by proposing it as such, you undermine, any of your argument. It just sounds like you want to, pants the entire country on a security level. And therefore, from that point on, nobody's going to listen to what the fuck you have to say about that issue because they know you're not serious. Same thing is true about this income tax thing that they just put forward. If they had guts at all, they'd say, we're going to have a federal VAT tax. Sales tax is regressive, though, says Skycom. Exactly. Yes, somebody in the chat just said that. It's regressive. That's why. Because their constituents in red states, but especially the poorer constituents they have, or the more consumptive constituents they have in the middle income areas, would be hit by that VAT tax way more than super rich people who buy their shit all over the world and buy it through businesses and all kinds of other stuff. Through LLCs and yada yada. Trust me, Trump would find a way to barely ever pay a dime of it and then get a refund. But if you were serious about eliminating the income tax in the United States, you would present a bill that institutes a VAT tax at a certain point and then institutes a mandatory increase up into the point you could eliminate, there'd be like a crisscross, a Venn diagram of when you could drop the income tax. There is no fucking way they are ever going to do that. So everything that they're proposing around this is PR. And it's political bullshit. They are politically bullshitting their constituents. Even this whole thing where he's acting like he's the purist between the two parties. Look at his hand gestures like he's holding back crowds that don't fucking exist. Nobody's there. Where'd everybody go?
I mean, that's my question.
Then why are you asking the ones that actually put forward a solution, which is raising taxes specifically on the wealthiest Americans? Even if you disagree with it, stop pretending it isn't one.
And I just would suggest there's no more important question for us to answer.
Sure there is. If, let's just use COVID, for example. Let's say you, God forbid, have you're in your family. Let's use they love the whole kitchen table analogy with finances. You have a mortgage, you have a car payment, you have a telephone payment, you have school tuitions and shit like that. And one of your kids is in an accident or has a disease that, like cancer or something that needs treatment. And you stand up at the dinner table and go, look, he was diagnosed 2 years ago. I say if he's not out of it by January 19th, we stop paying medical bills and stop taking him to the hospital. That's the suggestion here. Because we can't afford adding to it. And we stop paying our mortgage, we stop paying the car payment. We'll see if he goes any further with this in this. But the idea is that we're going to stop paying for the stuff that we already accrued, as opposed to finding a way to wean ourselves off like you would a prescription med, for example.
Because if we don't, then we're never going to come to agreement on the policies.
That's ridiculous. By the way, if you'll notice, and this is a fight he's having in his own party, understand this. This is not really, as much as he's couching it as an argument between him and Democrats about we're never going to come to terms. He means his own folks. That's what he's saying about defense. He think 95% of the Republicans are for supporting Ukraine. Chip Roy is against it the same way Marge is, the same way Boebert is, the same way Gates is. They're whipped up in this shit. They don't want to do it. And everybody else in their party is like, you're a fucking maniac. Of course we're going to do that. This is what this is about. This is not about an internal fight. Like, we're never going to be able to agree on policy if we can't do this dollar thing. That is his policy. His policy is cut off Ukraine. Support Russia in this. Let it happen.
Ever.
And that's just dumb. Oh, by the way, if you'll notice, I don't know if you guys where you were for the last 2 years, if you're just joining me. Anybody remember the number of bipartisan bills, including the infrastructure bill, including gun legislation, and a myriad of other things that actually was bipartisan, much less uniformly supported by every Democrat and a spattering of Republicans? They agreed on a bunch of shit. But this has nothing to do with bipartisan legislation. This is a fight between Chip Roy and the rest of the Republicans.
If I go home and I talk to my wife and I say, look, we're going to cap our spending at our 2022 levels of spending, then we've got to make choices. We got to decide, well, are we going to just not make our mortgage payment? No, we got to do that. Are we going to not feed our kids? Well, no, we got to feed our kids.
Yeah, but they don't have to eat that much, do they?
Are we going to have electricity and heat? Well, we'd like to have that. Then comes the discretionary questions. Do you take a vacation? Do you get a new car rather than patching together your 15-year-old car? Do you?
And by the way, do you know what his analogy in this situation is? With it, it sounds like, do we need a brand new bomber or the old bomber's just fine? But in reality, he's talking about Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security.
Send your kids to a certain school? Do you
Yeah, fuck them.
save a certain amount of money for college? Maybe you forego college because you look at college and go, why am I going to spend $300,000 to send them to a college that are going to teach my kids that America's evil?
Well, I don't know why you would choose America's Evil SU, but AESU is one of the, it's I don't know how it got into the Big Ten, and because the spelling there is atrocious.
I'll save that for another rant.
Yeah, because it's not a conversation, it's a rant. This is a rant. At his own colleagues. Don't think for a second. Don't let the whole woke blah, blah, blah. Don't think for a second this has anything to do with Democrats. This fucker is not on the floor bitching about Democrats at all. He's toying with the language. But this is McCarthy and the other 95%, including Marge.
But that's my point. We have to do that as families. But this body never does it.
By the way, this man supports Donald John Trump, the king of debt, who has never had a single day where his company turned a profit. That every dollar since Donald Trump took over his dad's company has been owed to someone else. Every single dollar. Every dollar he spends is part of the borrowed package. Donald Trump lives on debt. He bragged about it. He used his amount of debt to rig his taxes. Chip Roy supports that. He thinks it's fucking genius until you do it.
Ever. We pretend to do it. We pretend to do it.
Pretend to do what?
The point of the agreement reached last week was...
Again, notice that? This is not about Democrats.
To open this body up, empower rank and file.
Yeah, that's what he considers himself.
But also importantly, establish some parameters for how we fund the federal government.
There are lots of parameters. You don't get to establish your parameters as dominant over everybody else's. And when you present your argument in such a chicken shit, straw man, garbage, attacking your own side kind of way, no one is there to back you.
And those parameters should be that we set limits.
And he means the debt limit in this situation. He's also alone in this. In the same way that, if you want to do the kitchen table analogy, we've talked about the leaky roof. We've talked about things like frozen pipes or a fucking meteor hitting the house. And that what they're suggesting is that all along the way, when those things happened, you just suck it up. Live in the carcass of the house. Don't borrow money to patch the roof. Don't, call the fire department, which I guess in his world you'd pay a fee for, to come and put the fire out. Your investment isn't worth a fuck. And again, Chip Roy is one of these people who treats America like an apartment he lives in. He's a renter. His patriotism is to the extent that a college kid is to the place they're renting with their parents' money.
And if you set limits, now you have to sit down and figure it out. But here's the problem.
Your party.
I don't believe that Chuck Schumer and Senate Democrats want to sit down at the table and figure out how to limit spending.
Well, no, they might not in some cases, but they might find a way to raise taxes or shift around priority spending so that they don't have to, or the things that they want to cut, you don't want to cut. But they're not going to have a conversation with you because you're alone in this. They're going to sit down with Kevin McCarthy at some point, and they're going to listen to his fucking blather that he says when he walks out of the meeting and when he's walking into the meeting, which is going to be wholly different to what he agrees on in the actual fucking meeting.
I don't believe that the President of the United States or his current Director of the Office of Management and Budget or any of his team wants to sit down at the table with us and figure out how to limit spending.
Okay. Let's see. Biden deficit. You don't think so? Okay. Federal figures third thing coming high. House budget push cheap cuts. Blah blah blah. This is McCarthy's quote on it. Said this week the Republicans would use their leverage, including the need to raise the country's debt limit, to corral spending. One of the greatest threats we have to a nation is our debt, Mr. McCarthy said on Fox News. It makes us weak in every place that we can. It makes us weak in every place that we can. It makes us weak in every place that we can. What the fuck does that mean? Fucking hell. It makes us weak in every place that we can. That quote has boggled my fucking mind for a week.
But I've not even heard him come down and say, well, fine, you're right, Chip.
Don't hold your breath.
We're spending more money than we have, and we're racking up more debt, so we believe we need to increase taxes.
And by the way, Chip, do you make a car payment? Do you have a mortgage? Why are you spending more money than you have? Why are you buying insurance? If you can't afford to have cancer, you should be able to pay for it right out of pocket.
Okay, well, come make your offer.
Why? They passed an omnibus bill. They have a spending package. They raised taxes on billion-dollar corporations of minimum 15%. They had Janet Yellen work with our allies overseas to make sure it was in multiple countries so that companies wouldn't pack up here as soon as we started it and move to Ireland or England or France or Austria or some shit where they won't have it because they'll all have it together. We already been through this.
We'll raise taxes. Okay, show me how raising those taxes is going to eliminate the deficit.
It's not going to eliminate the deficit. It's going to pay it down, fucko.
He whispers, it's not.
That's a Biden thing, even though it's Schumer.
Show me how raising those taxes is not going to undermine economic growth, make it more difficult for American people to get jobs.
Yeah. You mean like refusing to raise the debt ceiling does every fucking time you guys do this?
Undermine the prosperity of the American people.
Which is what happens every time they try not to raise the debt ceiling. By the way, in this time that we've been like, oh my God, our national debt is through the fucking roof. Hold on. Let me, let's see. Whoops. U.S. GDP chart. Let's, two. Okay. See if I can get a boo 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 boo. GDP, let's see. Oh, I don't want the growth. I just need the number. Okay, here you go. GDP, I don't want. See if I can find. Yeah, here you go. This is here's a, you know, the chart you always see about our national debt, that it keeps going up. It's crazy, crazy, crazy. It keeps going up. We keep borrowing money on this thing, and it's outrageous because our economy is what, $2 trillion. It's like $5 million. That's the most of the clamoring. When did the national debt clock start? 90s, right about here. 91, 92, right? This is when the national debt clock started going up. And there's like a, hold on, let's see if I can do a comparison chart. National debt over time, something like that. Where's the national debt? Here we go. So now this is, you'll have, forgive me because this is a thinner chart. Oh, here you go. Wait. Yeah, so it drops down. Here's the national debt as a part of GDP. But the, like there you go. Let's start about this is 1980, 1990. Like it drops down like around Carter's time. By the way, I don't know why the fuck the Republicans don't just fucking love Jimmy Carter. Because look at this. And Reagan comes in and there you go. This is us, you know, bringing down Russia, and then, we don't need to do that anymore, and then 9/11, and then blah, blah, blah. Lots of other shit as well. That's the trend over time as part of GDP. I was trying to look for the actual number so you can see national debt by year. Let's see if there's a, come on, chart, graph. Give me a graph. You bastards. National debt over time. Graph. Whoops. National debt. Let's see. Yeah, so here's an inversion of it. Here's an inversion of it. It's this is the money going, you know, down is the amount of debt. So flip this upside down. Here's GDP. Going from, you know, zero as charted, like $280,000 in 1947, to the current U.S. GDP at 25.7. So $26 trillion is the current GDP, quarter three of 2022. The United States GDP is $26 trillion. Meanwhile, the debt is $30 trillion. Now, it was, let's see, 2019. And you know, again, most of this is cumulative and you're paying interest on stuff or what have you. But let's look at the same arc right here. So right about the time you see the biggest increments, and even then, it's not huge by comparison. This is about this is basically the slice of compound interest at a certain point, which is why you have to pay down some of the actual principal in this regard, which is why you'd need billionaires to pay taxes, billion-dollar companies more than like, because every billionaire in the country, if you taxed all of their money all at once, it wouldn't be a fucking drop in the bucket. But the companies that are worth billions of dollars, they would actually have a a source of revenue that they earned because they're protected by the United States and all of its intellectual property and the military and all the things that keep them functioning as a company wouldn't exist without other people paying taxes for them, even if they're R&Ding their way out of paying taxes. That this right here, you're at 30.93, and in let's see, yeah, it was at 2272 in 2019. Since the adding of this extra debt, you can track, this is the lurch in GDP. So basically, imagine taking out a loan for a business, that it's not a mortgage payment that you're talking about at this point. The mortgage payment stuff starts about is like here, and consider this like your standard of living stuff. That you borrowed money and you got a car, and you borrowed money and you got a house, and your family has a house and 2 kids and a car and a garage and a fucking yard and all that stuff. Okay, and you borrowed a lot less money, but that's what you've got, okay? And then you decide at some point after you've gone to college, you borrow like a third more, and your income shoots up to here. Anyone who looks at that can see that the vast majority of America's debt has been to raise the standard of living and the prosperity of the country as a whole. And again, this fucker thinks Donald Trump is a genius because he's always spending other people's money. Other people loan Donald Trump money, and he spends it on fucking curly Q French furniture and Big Macs and fish delights, and that makes him a genius. But if the United States does it and has an economic impact like Earth has never fucking seen, it's completely irresponsible and runaway, blah blah blah.
Show me that. Come.
Yeah, $5,000 to get a job that earns 50 grand. That is exactly right, DB. For decades.
Demonstrate that. Whispers, that's not really that easy to do.
And he's trying to do he thinks he's doing the Biden, that's not really that easy to do. And he's forgetting that he set up, this was a conversation with Schumer and Senate Democrats.
But our job is to responsibly represent the American people. It's not to govern. We often use that word. That's crazy.
No, it isn't. That's what policy does. Policy is an act of governance. It's a representative governance, which means everybody has a say, not everybody wins. Democracies work that way. But it's, of course, governance. The fuck do you think like the bipartisan gun legislation was? That is an act of governance.
We don't govern.
Well, you don't govern.
We represent.
What the fuck does that mean? I'm just coming here doing what the people in my district tell me to do. Bullshit.
And our job is to represent our constituents, and I don't know any constituents
that if I put it in really stupid terms, will go, yeah, that sounds good.
Frankly, even my most left-leaning constituents, to be honest, I don't know.
Which I'm sure he listens to, and I'm sure he feels he represents as part of what he's saying here today.
Any constituents who are saying, oh yeah, please go up there and spend more money we don't have.
Well, when you put it like that, but if let's just say, you're driving along and there's a car accident. And you, against your better judgment as an Ayn Randian, decide to get out of your car and help take some of the people to the hospital. And you bring one of your constituents, not even one of your left-leaning constituents, into the hospital. And they got a mangled fucking leg and a piece of a fender stuck in their abdomen. And they're losing a lot of blood. And they're about to wheel them into ICU and then into surgery. And you stop them and go, wait a second, I don't think you can afford to live. Honestly, look at his tie. Look how much he spent on that tie. This is ridiculous. Right.
I would just suggest
a pile of manure.
That According to the CBO, we're going to see another $15.7 trillion in deficits over the next 10 years.
Right. And an increase in GDP of somewhere between 8 and 9% over those years.
That's the truth.
Yes, but it's only half the truth, which is the whole fucking game. All right. I don't know about you guys, but I'm bored with this fucker. The whole speech is a half hour if you want to go look at it. But this is indicative of what's going on in the Republican caucus right now. This has fuck all to do with an argument with Democrats about budgetary numbers. This is Chip Roy trying to bitch his colleagues on the Republican side into buying his Freedom Caucus, tighten our belts, choke everything off bullshit, considering especially that Chip Roy comes from a district that wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the New Yorks and the Dallases and the Los Angeleses and the San Franciscos of the fucking world. Like this whole idea that they're like, that Chip Roy's district is off the fucking grid and doesn't get more than its fair share of federal funding. Here's a real easy way to do it. I got a solution that will work for Chip Roy. Hear me out. I think this will work. Chip Roy goes back to his district and says, hi, everybody, as your representative in Congress, I went up there and I crunched the numbers. And for every 47 cents we put in federal taxes, we get $1.20 back from the federal government. And one of the ways that we can fix the debt in a lot of ways is simply to just go 1 for 1. So for every 47 cents we put in taxes, we get 47 cents worth of services back. That's it. We in this district, because I hear you, we're not going to contribute. We're going to be a pilot program for tightening our fucking budgets. Have you ever, and do you ever, expect one of these motherfuckers to say anything of the like to their constituents? No. What he's talking about is big cities. Big rich cities that pay for his district to fucking exist in the first place need to stop supporting all the poor people in those cities that largely, by the way, ice skate uphill against the cost of living in a big city all the time because their choice is to live out in the fucking sticks and work for Walmart and still have to have Medicaid because they can't afford it. There is not a single, and I challenge them, I challenge my colleagues on the other side, a single fucking Republican deficit hawk to look at the books of their district and say to their constituents, the national debt, and I've worked with some of my other colleagues on our side, they're gonna do this too. Matt Gaetz is going to go to his fucking district in the Panhandle, and Marge Gaetz is going to go to the George's 4th or whatever the fuck. And they're going to say to their constituents, we need to fix the debt, right? Yeah. We don't need to spend money we don't have, right? Yeah. Everybody behind me? Okay, excellent. Our district is relatively poor, and we only kick in about 47 cents for every $1.20 we get from the federal government in services, and all the shit we're supposed to pay into, like making sure airplanes don't fall out of the sky and all that shit, and not to mention the highway system. We can't afford any of this shit. So our district is going to turn away any federal help over that number. One of them. One of these motherfuckers. I would love to see them stand in front of a crowd of maggots and explain to them how the next district over is going to get $1.06 worth of services for every, because they put $1.06 in. They're going to get top-notch stuff. When there's a hurricane, when there's if there's an outbreak, covered. If there's an earthquake, if if they have a terrorist incident or whatever, the federal government's going to rush right in there and go, here's dollar for dollar what you need and keep the change. But Chip Roy's district is going to stand at the border of their district and when FEMA shows up and say, no, thank you. We cannot spend money we do not have. Never fucking happen. They don't mean we, they mean you. Other than that, I have no opinion. You're watching Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide. It's hump day. It's a good time. Tomorrow I'll be on the regular time at 4 o'clock. And of course, on Friday morning, it'll be the morning show will be kind of jammed. I'm doing Steph's show in the morning on Friday and then rolling right into my show. So if you're a Steph head and you're in their chat on Twitch, hop on over, just jump ship right over to the show right afterwards. I'll see if I can get them to raid my show. I do it for everyone else. Nobody does it for me. Just sad. Anyways, and then the rest of the shows will be all normal timing the rest of the week, and then of course this Saturday, Nerd Halen at the M Resort here in Vegas. Very exciting, big long set, lots of songs, good times. So there we go. Will there be when will there be Man About Town merch? When I actually launch that as a thing. I need a whole production team, and I just don't have one. I can't afford it yet. Please super chat. Once we'll get there eventually. I'm not at even to the point where I can go. Chip Roy thinks his city deserves less than 50 cents in federal aid per dollar everyone else gets. Prove me wrong with a fucking folding card table and a little sign. I'm not there yet. One day, a boy can dream, can't he?